Whether your project vehicle is brand new or 50 years old, Napa will have the parts and tools you need to get the job done. The Newfoundland Hobbyist is sponsored by Napa Auto Parts.
No hesitation.
Whether I'm in the workshop or out on the trails, Wild Med Kits provides me with the equipment I need to stay prepared. The Newfoundland Hobbyist is sponsored by wildmedkits.ca. This episode's project-specific sponsors include Dempsey's Mechanical, Carburetor.ca, and Peak Tow.
You gonna miss me? Yeah. I'll see you tomorrow.
Last week on the Newfoundland Hobbyist, my dad and I left for a journey to St. John's. And so, the overnight trip
p.m. in the evening,
halfway across our province, driving
nearly
through
7
the night.
hours, roughly 600 kilometers from central Newfoundland to the east coast in St. John's. Let's hope this project is worth it. Great. What do you think?
It's a project.
You ready for
The trip was to purchase something for a project I'd been wanting to do a long time. An RV to a work truck conversion.
the Vandura. Smooth sailing has stopped.
This nearly 50-year-old RV had been parked for the last 10 years, not licensed, sitting in a yard, and our attempts to drive home went as well as you could expect. We managed to get a tow service to deliver our vehicle back across the island. And once we got it in our possession, I got to work getting the vehicle running again. This old, tired engine, although low mileage, any engine sitting tends to gum up, get sticky, just doesn't want to run properly. So with some new plugs, some fresh oil, some different changing, we eventually started to get the vehicle to come around. We got the truck running good enough to get to the next town to Dempsey's Mechanical, who carried out our vehicle inspection. We left with very few things having to do, and once our inspection was done, we got to work actually destroying the camper part of this vehicle. Thankfully, that process went relatively smoothly, and with no casualties, I was able to get on to stripping the remainder of the vehicle that we wanted gone. We ended off episode 1 of this series with a blank slate, a truck that we could start to rebuild and really make something out of to carry out this project that I've been dreaming of. Today we're back to work on this classic 1970s GMC 1-ton. Just look at that gauge cluster. We're going to start by continuing with getting the performance up to spec and taking care of some issues regarding the inspection. That way this vehicle can be running well, be roadworthy, and happy to be put into production again. I'll start by pulling our Edelbrock breather here. New filter. Something I forgot to list. With our thorough maintenance we did in the beginning to get ready for inspection, we got the vehicle running well, but not tip-top shape. It seems like the issues we're still running into are issues with fuel pulling. It's just losing its fuel. If you remember this clip right here, listen to how it's sounding. holding itself like it was on that run. Clearly sputtering and very rough sounding. Fuel would be the next step to address, so that is what we're doing today with a full carburetor rebuild. There we go. Let's take a little closer inspection of it. As is here, you can see it's quite the mess. We have a Rochester Quadrajet badge there. It's a 50-year-old carburetor. Probably never been broken down. Lots of gum, lots of gel. This old stuff here is what happens when your gas is sitting. It gels like that. A lot of gunk in around there. This was a very challenging and intimidating part of the project. These old 4-barrel carburetors are so complex. The parts list is very intimidating. The settings can be intimidating and very difficult to get right. And for someone who has never done a carburetor besides a single motorcycle carburetor, this was a big project to take on. Dirt down inside, a lot of scum, gelled and flaking old gas. You can see the varnish here actually peeling off. This is the third and final piece of the body, and just look at the condition of this piece. Some of the gasket still on there. There we go. With all the components cleaned, we have a selection of brand new parts to install as well. This whole carburetor build was sponsored by Rusty from the Carb Doctor. Rusty was so kind to sponsor the whole kit, and his years of experience and professional knowledge as well as he helped me through this rebuild. Their diagrams they send with their kits are very detailed, and without it I definitely would not have been able to carry out this project. Now that is one clean, fresh looking Rochester Quadrajet carburetor. Oh gal you are. Nice. Don't scratch her.
I'll show you some in there.
I'm just hoping everything is hooked up correctly. You see where I've ran here? My hard line that used to dip down, and now we've ran our bowl up here. So I'll be able to see right now, as soon as I click the key, and we wink it a few times, we'll be able to see if she's pulling fuel or not. Soft line, that'll help keep it out of the way. It actually started. It actually started. So it's starving itself for fuel. Now that is just ultimate satisfaction. Do you remember what the vehicle sounded like before we did this? Let's just take a little flashback and listen to how the engine sounded before our work. And now back to that snappy new engine. As a custom knife maker and craftsman, sharpening has become a part of my daily routine. I use paulsfinest.com for all of my sharpening equipment. The Newfoundland Hobbyist is sponsored by Paul's Finest.
Fairly good.
For the beginner and advanced sharpener, the Edge Pro sharpening system makes it easier for you to get razor-sharp edges every time. The Newfoundland Hobbyist is sponsored by Edge Pro Inc. We have a lot of fabrication work to do on this project, so the first step right now is to start stripping off everything we can get out of our way to carry out that work. Simmons Tire supplies all the wheels, tires, and accessories you need for everything from ATVs and cars to heavy equipment and machinery. The Newfoundland Hobbyist is sponsored by Simmons Tire. I stopped off at Simmons Tire in Deer Lake for a fresh set of rubber that was hindering our road certification. We had a few suspension and mechanical components also hindering our inspection. Very minor stuff, but we're taking care of that right now with some parts from NAFA. Control arms, a couple bushings, just a few minor things that we needed, but we're going to have this vehicle back, running, and ready to do some work for us.
There we go. I can compress that spring enough to assemble the hub. There we go. Oh yeah. That's where that rubber foot on the Carlisle jack there really comes in, and it's a beautiful thing. I'm not going to tear up the bottom of my ball joint. I still don't have that much torsion on that spring there, guys. You could see I was able to compress it a certain amount just with my hand.
After removing that camper, we are left with half a cab, maybe less than half a cab on that old GMC. I got to work proactively hunting down a vehicle that we could use as a donor because we're going to need some serious fabrication parts that are going to be hard to find, purchase, or even build. We found the perfect donor van in our very own town. It's mostly rotted, mostly garbage, but we were able to hunt it down.
Come on, baby.
A local gentleman had it sitting in his backyard for years, and he was gracious enough to give it to us, for which we are very thankful.
This one is lifting. This front one is lifting.
Well, he'll do.
You long enough to go put 2 ends on the top?
Yeah.
This old 3/4 ton arc of a van is basically grown into the spot. It's been sitting here so long. Seized brakes, flat and flattened tires. This half-ton pickup is just not doing it, trying to get it out of his resting place.
Well, gosh, you won't seem to budge off the spot. It's been sitting here good, I don't know how long, maybe, wouldn't even know where to stay. 15 years, 20 years, not sure, but I'm guessing brakes and everything are all seized up. Doesn't want to move off the spot. Dad is a snowplow operator, so we have a backup plan. Best rides I've had. Luckily the pavement's wet, so we're not leaving any flat marks, but she's dragging tires. Luckily we have a local here with a piece of land who was kind enough to let me bring it up here while I scrap it. Not my smoothest ride.
I hope you all thoroughly enjoyed this episode. I hope you learned something, but if not, at least I hope you were entertained. Thank you to my sponsors. I want to give a big shout out. They have been so helpful in making this series possible, and to our project-specific sponsors like Rusty from the Carb Dock, Simmons Tire, and Napa for donating parts to this project. I'm really thankful. Please go ahead and support them all if you can. Make sure you tune in next week to the Newfoundland Hobbyist.